Did you guys see the video of the announce team? Now, I'm talking about from Saturday, the main event, Jon Jones, right? So this little video comes out, and essentially it's the announce team. It's three guys, and they're quiet. They're in awe is how I took it. I suppose it's open for interpretation. But somebody tweets this very short video to Jon Jones. And Jon's referencing Daniel Cormier in his response, but he says, my man couldn't even pretend to be happy having an experienced announcer and fighter all of a sudden not know what a guillotine is. Okay. Now that's not what happened, right? I mean, he wasn't that they didn't know what a guillotine was, or they didn't know the position, or they didn't know that he didn't tap out, or that they didn't know the match wasn't over. It was just unbelievable that it happened. It really was. And the only reason that you guys agree with me, or that I made the statement in the first place, is because it's how we felt to some degree. I mean, you're looking at that. What? They're done? A topside guillotine against the fence? What? Okay. So, but it was funny. I mean, this is funnier than hell by Jon Jones. This was a great piece of entertainment. And it's not generally on Twitter with Jon, right? Like, there's some guys that get accused out there of not even doing their own Twitter. You would have never accused Jon of that. Like, there's no professional in the world that could personally be, right? There's no writer in the world. There's no creative mind. There's no sober thought that could put this mumbling that Jon does, and it comes out funny. I mean, this was really funny, and this isn't the first hit by Jon, by the way. This is about the third hit of the week by Jon. I mean, I thought it was so interesting. I thought it was so clever. You know, he's got this pretend I'm pretending that I know more about wrestling than Bo Nickel, and he does it right to Bo Nickel's face. It was great. It was great. He attempted to introduce himself. Valentin Shevchenko, right? I mean, but this is great. And I look at the Jon thing because I want a rivalry to continue, right? I don't like Jon Jones, but it's important to me that the story's told the way it happened. Just to me, on a personal level, it's very important to me that is how stories are told accurately, the way that they happened. For the people 20 and 30 and 40 years from now that come back and see these tapes and want us to tell them what happened, and they're counting on us, right? So some total stranger that you don't even know that comes back and sees us and uses your words to help influence a dissertation they're writing for a local college that hasn't learned how to cheat through GTP AI yet. For whatever reason, I have that little thing. So I need the story told accurately. So regardless of my heat with Jon, man, there was some cool things here. Now, Jon is one of these guys that's going to fight and fill in the blank. But believe me, the day when the new record that Jon is chasing is to be the oldest fighter to successfully do it, and who was that? Randy fought at 47, but he didn't win, right? It was 44. Randy won and beat Tim Sylvia at 44, right? So Dan Henderson came out and he beat Michael Bisping, but he lost the decision. Dan Henderson should have been, and he was 47. And if I'm wrong, 46. Now, we don't have to have these completely straightened out. But mark my words, that will be the story and the goal. That's going to come quickly, right? He's 36 years old now. Like, this is going to come very quickly, that a decade goes by and you're in that spot. And it would be cool. First off, it's cool whoever does that. When Randy went and did it at 44, this was amazing stuff. When George Foreman catches Michael Moore, he was 49 years old. They rounded up and said 50. You guys have probably read that he was 50. He was not 50. He was 49. But this comes back to my point of when people tell a story, they need to tell it accurately. Why would you call a guy 50 if he was 49? But on the George Foreman case, which you've heard, George was 50 when he knocked out Michael Moore. He wasn't. He was 49. Okay. But it's important that you understand this, because That's something that today would embarrass Jon, right? I'm not going to do that. Tell him, first off, we're not teasing you. To be able to do that, right? Dan Harrison did this till he was 47 and successfully. I'm not 47 now. Like, I will tell you, I look at that and go, man, that's amazing. Older than I am right now and still the top in the world. And Jon was the youngest champion to ever do it. So he's the youngest champion to ever do it. He becomes the oldest champion to ever do it. Right. You see where that becomes pretty cool. But for right now, that becomes a weird thing to do. And Jon's coach tried to get in front of this over the weekend. He actually spoke about it. He said, Jon's one of these guys that's going to get out of here early. Prove everything there is to prove and be done. And, you don't want to give Jon's coach a hard time. The guy's not an interview guy. He doesn't know what, somebody runs a microphone. I don't want to give this guy the business. But there isn't a reasonable statement. There is no reasonable word within that statement. Jon's one of these guys that's going to get out of her early. He's 36 now. He right now is an old man. Not kind of old. He is 36. He is out of his prime. The world in America, you want to know who you market to, who you pay money to? They're 18 to 25. He's 36 years old. Jon is not a grandfather yet, but it's not far off. I mean, you're just talking about a handful of years. I don't think you understand from that perspective. 36 years old. In 1992, Barcelona Olympics, Chris Campbell was his name. Chris Campbell was on the Olympic team. In 1992, you guys have never even heard of him. He was the flag bearer, which is the biggest honor that the fellow athletes can bestow on another athlete is the flag bearer. 100%. And they had him do it because he was so old. He was 36. He was as old as Jon Jones is right now. They called him Grandpa. NBC, who Chris Campbell, on television, because he was the flag bearer, when we came out at the opening ceremonies, also referred to him as Grandpa because he was 36. I mean, you really got to understand that. I know that we've had older people come through our sport. It doesn't make the 36-year-old not old. They used to do, it was headlines everywhere. Randy Couture, because he debuted at 34. That was just a shocking thing that he debuted successfully. Went on to the championship. Diamond Dallas Page debuted in professional wrestling at 35, and that is still a story to this day of the oldest guy. So what I'm sharing is the coach can't say, Jon's one of these guys that's going to get out early. He's going to prove everything and move on. Man, this isn't about proving. This is about money. Period. And Jon isn't one of these guys that's going to do something afterwards. There's not a lot of interest that he has. He would like to make money, and then he would like to stay home. Screw around. Good for him. Not teasing him in the least. But it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, if you're the greatest athlete in a sport that the world sees, when you're done, you're now handled. Every athlete. Give any example. Go ahead. Go ahead. Any example you want. Tom Brady retires 2 weeks ago. I'm watching today. He's doing a commercial for Hertz, a publicly traded company. I mean, just for example, the sponsors can't get on Jon because of the steroids. Now, you can get around the steroids and get back to where I can have a sponsorship. You can get back to that. Every athlete that reaches a level of success like Jon, when they retire, they're handled. They're handled, except him. And that's because of the steroids, but he can deal with those. Now, there's really only two ways that you can deal with a PR mess. One way, and it's the way that Jon has elected, is to outrun it. That's it. Let enough time go by and enough other things happen and enough people quit talking about it. But then you're going to run into the guy like me who's going to go out of his way to make sure that he mentions it, right? For no reason at all. You're going to get a guy like me that goes on a major network and he's talking about, God, Jon sure looked amazing this week. And he taps the reel out and he did it with a guillotine. And you know what? He passed his steroid test. I'm going to find a way to bring it up. So it's hard to outrun. It's hard to outrun, right? But the other thing you can do is admit it. Now, that's the one that he won't do. That's the one that he's resisting doing. But that's the one that I'm only suggesting you do because I watched him introduce himself to Valentina Shevchenko. Right? I watched him tell Bo Nickel he didn't understand how to hand fight and he should have grabbed the wrist this way instead of this way. And Bo Nickel stand down and not argue and say, I'll come back here. I'll show you how to hand fight. He's good. He's clever. I watched him burn Daniel Cormier for not knowing what a guillotine is. He's good. He's clever. Just come out and tell people what happened. It's a suggestion, but it's an interesting story. It's a very, very interesting story. Jon had tested positive for Treadabullet. You don't know what that is. Generally, this is the time where I would then turn to you rhetorically and I say, do you know what that is? And even though I can't hear you respond, that's generally, but I won't do it because you don't know what it is. And you couldn't find it, and you couldn't go get your hands on it right now. And you might have steroid friends. You could call them, you still couldn't buy it. You would have to visit a museum to get a hold of this terrible steroid that Jon tested positive for. There is no chance that even a detractor like me believes that he intentionally took Treadabullet. Not only did he not take it, he didn't possess it. Not only did he not possess it, he never attempted to find it. But he tested positive for it. See, that's an interesting story. Interesting story. I'm quite sure what happened, right? Like if God comes down and I must hand him the right answer, I'm very confident in telling God that Jon took a banned substance that was tainted with this other banned substance. That's why it was Mr. Surprise Face. Not because that you tested positive for that which you had never even heard of. And one of the reasons I believe that was Jon's reaction is the reaction I had. Precise thing had gone through. So I think he's clever. He's not going to outrun it. Not going to. Might not care. Might not want to. Might not matter to him. Might not understand and know that every top athlete, when they retire, are handled financially for life by sponsors except for him. He might not even know these things, right? But if he does, I got to tell you, I found him funny. I found him to be clever. I thought him informing the world that Daniel being shocked and awe of the amazement of him, and then attempting to say that Daniel didn't even know what a topside guillotine is. That's funny. That's interesting. So, 2 ways to go. Try to outrun it. Been trying that for a long time, but it also implies that you're not going to screw up again, right? I mean, you have a screw up. Of course he's going to screw up again. That's where the outrun it thing becomes tough. You can outrun it if you go and become a hall monitor for the rest of your life. Did you see the corner of Jon Jones? Did you see the guys he's training with right now? Right? I mean, this is not a band of good guys. Like, for sure, more bad things are coming. For sure. We should stop trying to outrun it. Just tell people what's happening. Come introduce your corner to them. Come put these knuckleheads on camera. Come read these guys as who, right? Of course trouble's waiting for him. It's just a matter of when.